Okay, Gav, can you hear me?
Yeah,
All right, you can see the PowerPoint.
yeah.
Perfect. All right, hello everyone. Thanks again for checking in to the second Sting and Titans mental skills and nutrition presentation. My name is Rick Hadwick. Hopefully you caught the first one, and now I'm going to progress a little bit from some of the basics that I spoke about last month in terms of an introduction to mental skills. We gave some examples, and now just to target a little bit more in terms of a specific topic. Before I do that, the previous presentation I spoke about a performance profile, and I wanted to just go back to this quickly, just again to encourage you all to talk to the athletes about using these. And again, one thing I encourage is for young athletes basically to list the qualities that they believe are required for their position. So have them take ownership, and it doesn't have to be just mental qualities or mental skills. It could be certain technical qualities, physical, tactical, and you can blend all those in there. But by the athlete thinking about those things, they can then rate themselves, as you see on the example here. And then after a period of time, it could be next month, it could be after the season. You can then go back and look at, okay, am I improving in these areas where I really need improvement? Even with my strengths, are they improving too? And it just gets the athlete thinking about all the different areas of their game, which is obviously very important. And then through mental skills training, they can look at the specific mental qualities and whether they're improving there too. And hopefully today I'll give some ideas on how to build confidence, self-belief, and those kind of things. So that's what we'll be talking about today. Last week I did an ECNL presentation here in Dallas, and Stuart Hilton gave me several topics, and the first one of those was confidence and self-belief. And obviously it's such a crucial aspect of athletic performance, and um, just enjoying really playing the game. If you're a confident athlete, if you have strong self-belief, then you're probably going to be having a positive experience. And so just to explain a difference between the two, when we refer to self-belief, it's more of an internal feeling. So what we believe about ourselves, it's understanding and knowing yourself. It's trusting your judgment and your intuitions. And trust is a really big word when it comes to self-belief. It's your identity as a whole person. In sports psychology, we often refer to this as self-image. I have a memory of working with high school and ECNL players a few years ago who had a very negative self-image, and these were incredibly strong athletes and strong female athletes, but their view of themselves as an athlete, if they were to visualize themselves performing, was often very negative, and that was unfortunately down to I think a lot of what some female athletes struggle with growing up is their perception of themselves in terms of their looks and that kind of thing. And it's far too common, but something that as coaches and parents we can educate young athletes on and turn it into a more positive self-image. And one question I ask athletes is if I was to strip away your grades, your accomplishments, your certificates, what would be left? And that is a good measure of self-belief when we talk about those things, and who are you deep down as a person. So looking now at confidence, and confidence refers more to the external side. One example I've got here is Coco Gauff, the young tennis player. She's obviously very, very young. I think she was 15 when she turned pro. But the self-belief and confidence that she carries is incredible. And this picture here is from the US Open game that she lost. And she wasn't afraid to be herself in that moment, to be emotional, to be vulnerable. And I thought that was a great example of someone that has incredible self-belief and incredible confidence. Um, so again, confidence refers to more external factors, specific situations. So when we look at confidence in terms of, are you confident with both feet? If you were to play in this position, would you still be confident in that specific situation. And the question we ask ourselves is, do I have the tools to succeed in this moment? And if we believe we have the tools, then we feel confident. If we don't feel like we have the tools, and that could be the technical level required in soccer, the tactical understanding, if we don't feel like we have those, then that's when we can start to feel anxious and have a more negative perception of that situation. It's not linear, and it's again very important for young athletes to understand that. And so some games you can have a real confidence boost, some practice you can feel really good and strong, but it's okay for that not to happen all the time. And when young athletes understand that some days my confidence is going to take a hit, they can pay attention to that and really focus on more positive self-talk and how to reframe that and perceive it a little bit differently and try to turn it into a positive. And one example might be, okay, my touch was off today at practice, I wasn't performing well, however I simply kept going, my effort stayed high, I didn't let the team down, I was strong in my defensive plays. So your understanding of the negative is there, but you're also finding positives to build up that confidence bank. And so with that confidence, it is a skill and something that can be worked on. So to give some examples, I don't think there's any one out there more confident than Muhammad Ali. And one thing that we take from an athlete like this is just his words. So he used such powerful words, not just to the media and his opponents, but that he's repeating those words to himself, and he believes it. He truly believes he's the greatest. And when you have that kind of perception of yourself and such a strong, powerful feeling, it's something that isn't going to be shaken by a loss or by a tough time at practice. It's not going to be affected. And so he's a great example of, again, not just the words, but the body language and just the way he carried himself was incredible. Alex Morgan, another example. One thing I really like about Alex Morgan is she's very determined and very focused, but she always seems to be enjoying herself. She's playing with a smile, and that to me is a sign of a confident athlete, someone that clearly is enjoying the game. And I didn't put Ronaldinho on here, but he's another example of, when he played at Barcelona, huge crowds, huge pressure, but just always smiling. Cristiano Ronaldo, I'll be honest, I'm not his biggest fan, but in terms of confidence and again, body language and the way he carries himself, everything about him just screamed, I believe in myself and I'm going to have an impact today. You could say it borders on arrogance, which can make some people uncomfortable, but it's incredibly powerful when you carry yourself that way. Even if you're not feeling your best a certain day, that there's research out there to prove that strong body language, that having the shoulders back, having the head up, it can almost trick the brain into a more positive outlook, a more positive mindset. And another non-soccer example is Rory McIlroy. Again, just referring to body language, just he always walks very powerfully and strong. And again, by doing so, you're telling the world, but you're also telling yourself, yeah, I'm feeling good today. I'm going to perform well today. And if young athletes can take little pieces from these top athletes and learn from it and even imitate a little bit, then I think they'll see a positive impact from that. And it's not asking athletes to not be themselves and to force them to be uncomfortable, but it's just trying it. It's giving it a go to say, today I'm gonna show a confident version of myself, whatever that might be to the athlete. And again, by doing so, I think young athletes will see a difference in how they carry themselves and ultimately how they perform. So in terms of the techniques, we use self-talk, visualization, and you've heard me talk about body language a lot up to now. And self-talk is simply what we're telling ourselves. So every single day, we're repeating a lot of things to ourselves, and unfortunately, a lot of that can be negative. Just as human beings, we can tend to focus on negatives. And so we have to pay attention to that and be aware of it and try and change some of those habits. And so if we turn that to performance and we're at training or we're in a game, it's really important initially just to be aware of how am I communicating with myself today. Is it positive statements? Is it powerful statements that make me feel good, or am I just feeding this negativity that is then having a result in terms of a negative body language, and then not being able to put the performance in, because effort can drop when that happens. And so once we're aware of it, we can then really start to change just how we're talking to ourselves during performance. Visualization is a huge one. So this is something where we can either visualize a previous performance that was positive, or for myself, I always prefer to visualize a future performance, and to imagine that being, just how I would want the game to go and how I would like to perform. And that just depends on the athlete. And some athletes can struggle with visualizing negative thoughts, so it does take practice. But generally, the research is very, very positive for visualization, even with younger athletes too. And that's something both these topics we'll talk about in a bit more detail through the year, and we'll give some examples and some techniques on those. And then finally, body language. So again, purely by standing up straight, having the shoulders back, and looking strong, it simply can make you feel that way. And there is research out there that's proven this to be effective. One example of powerful visualization was from Carli Lloyd. So I won't read all of this, but feel free to pause it and read through this. But she basically visualized her quality. So whether it was finishing or free kicks, she had an idea of goals that she'd set. She had great clarity on those goals. She visualized success over and over again, and then she obviously took action on that. And I think the example they gave is that she visualized scoring 4 goals, which was quite the positive outlook, and she scored 3. So she was obviously still very, very happy with that. But she shares a lot about the power of visualization to her. And again, I think the perception in the past has been this is more for elite athletes. But my argument has always been, no matter what level you're playing at, if this can help your game and boost your performance, why aren't we all using this, regardless of level or age? And again, there's great research out there that shows that the effectiveness of visualization with young athletes, just as much as with the elite athletes. So again, in a future presentation, I'll go into a bit more detail on how we use visualization to boost our performances and boost our confidence. Catastrophic thinking. So this is just something that, again, as human beings, we can tend to do that negatively impacts confidence. And basically what it means is we start to perceive a mistake or a bad result as, okay, this is the end of my time in the game, or it's, there's no way back from this. And young athletes especially can get caught up in this. And so we have to obviously then educate athletes to pause that thought process, take a step back, and be aware of what's happening, and be empathetic to it as well, and almost tell yourself, I understand why I feel this way, but I'm not going to continue this cycle of negativity. Instead, I'm now going to look for that positive. I'm going to have a more realistic reflection of my performance. And then what the mind starts to do is dig out certain positives, whereas if we didn't do that, it would just be that constant negative process. And so by reflecting that way, we can then start to put our mind back onto, okay, so maybe my first touch was off today, maybe my finishing was poor today, but again, I kept my efforts super, super high right through the game, and I can take a positive from that. Or even if it's, my communication was positive, I was a good teammate, but we can always find those positives. And so that's part of self-talk then, and visualization to alter the process of catastrophic thinking. When we suffer injury, again, we can start to look at that as, okay, my game's over, I'm done. But again, by pausing that thought process and putting goals in place to say, I'm injured, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be a long time, but I can get back from this, and you you reframe it with more positive statements, positive feelings, and then you start to realize, maybe this injury isn't going to be the end for me. Maybe this is something that's going to make me stronger. So just some examples there of the cycle we can get into and how we can change that. One example from just the last weekend, Nicolas Otamendi. I don't know if anyone saw the Manchester City game, but got destroyed by Jimenez and Traore in a very difficult game. And so that might be an example for him of, how am I going to come back from this? Now, at the elite level, typically athletes are very, very good at not getting caught in that negative cycle. But if that was a young athlete and I was working with them, it would be very, very difficult initially to overcome that. But it would be really important to go back to other positive performances and say, I'm not going to focus just on that last game. What have I done the last 2 years? What positives can I pick out that prove that I'm a better player than I was in that last game? And so it's really, really important for athletes to just stop themselves when they get caught in that cycle. So practice, building confidence takes practice. And some examples, we can write down our accomplishments, stick them on the bedroom wall, and it's a constant reminder of what we've achieved. Taking pictures of positive memories. It might be of certain games or tournament success. Anything that brings out that positive emotion, positive feeling, and builds that confidence bank. Setting goals. I call them smarter goals. I add on the evaluate and readjust at the end. But by setting goals and achieving goals throughout the year, again, that's just only going to build up that confidence throughout the season. And then, as we spoke about, self-talk, visualization, and body language all play a huge role in building an athlete's confidence. And one thing I should also mention is it's really important to have the right people around you. And so for parents, for coaches, also to look to feed that confidence in the right way. And what I mean by that is it has to be genuine, and it has to be something that the athlete takes in as, oh yeah, I can see they mean that. So if we're just making general statements, it's not going to be taken on board as, yeah, this is something that they really mean to build my confidence. But if you can pick out specific things about the individual, specific moments, things they've achieved, things they've done in the game, that's really going to support them to build up their confidence. And sometimes that can be more powerful than coming from ourselves. When we hear it from a coach or a parent or a friend, could be anyone. It's incredibly powerful to a lot of athletes, especially young athletes, to hear that. And then it's important for them to take that in, even write it down in a journal, and all about filling up that confidence bank. So one task I've written down along with the performance profile. The next practice or the next game, challenge the athlete. So if you're a coach, ask them to show you confidence. And if there's one thing you want to see in that practice or that game, it's a confident player. And ask them what it looks like to them, and not to tell you, but to go out there and show you. If you're a parent, you might be on the way to a game and just say to them, today, just show me what a confident athlete looks like. And even if you make a mistake in the game, how would a confident athlete respond to that mistake? And it just gets the athletes thinking about it, gets them trying new things, holding themselves a different way, and again, maybe they'll change their body language. Maybe they will change how they react to a mistake, or maybe the team goes down a goal, and they're thinking, okay, how can I be mentally strong enough to continue to show that confidence? So just a little task to try, and I'd love to hear any feedback on that. As always, I want to hear back from you on the performance profiles and on the task, so that if there are any challenges with that, I can help out and give some ideas. But there's my info, and feel free to get in touch anytime. And now I'll switch over to Gavin Moll, who's going to continue the nutrition aspect. But thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Rick. I've got to click to share the screen.
You got it?
Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
can. Okay, so yeah, if you did join us on the first one, I just went over game day nutrition. We were just getting to the start of the season and thought it was appropriate. On this one, we're just gonna touch on just the. Oh, Rick, can you see the share your screen thing on the screen, Rick? At the bottom right. Rick. Oh, I'll carry on. Yeah, so just touching on just the foundational info about sports nutrition, just to give you an idea of just how important it is and how far this dates back. My email is on there, just if you want to ask me any questions or anything after this presentation. Just got my email there. Okay, again, if you didn't join us on the last one, just a little bit about my education. I won't make you read all this. You can watch this back and look on the website as well for a little bit about my background. So a brief history of sports nutrition. I've started there with the 1800s, where just to give you an idea of just how far this dates back of people trying to get an advantage in performance via the nutrition. In this case, it was a supplementation. Dutch swimmers tested caffeine tablets to aid or boost their performance. So not even though it wasn't natural food, it was just a way to try and boost performance. In the 1960s, I've jumped ahead quite a bit. This is when glycogen testing really started to pick up, and so basically testing carbs, the level of carbohydrates, and how that impacts endurance, performance during events. A bit later on in the 60s, Gatorade, obviously massive brand, still going really strong now. They started to introduce sports drinks to the market. Lots of testing was going on to see if that is better than water, and how can that type of hydration help performance again. In the 1980s, lots of professional teams started consulting with nutritionists, registered dietitians, and even employing those within their professional organizations to really help gain that extra advantage over the competition. In the early 2000s, up until this point, a lot of this nutrition information really was down to more just physiology testing. During the 2000s, dedicated sports nutrition labs started popping up more, shall we say, and really focusing on the ins and outs of how every little part of nutrition affects performance. In 2009, there's a study that happened in the University of Exeter in England on beetroot juice. So beetroot juice is found to increase blood flow, nitric oxide, and improve muscle contraction. And you'll find that most professional teams now use that before games to get just a slight advantage. So you can see even just like down to just one vegetable, they can see what makes the difference now. So now it's just mass testing, loads of labs, different vegetables. They're always finding the latest things. Like pickle juice now is for a form of cramping, and you'll see teams snacking on pickles during halftime. And even mine and Rick's O2 boys actually are bringing pickles to the games quite often to stop cramping during these days. Performance nutrition is basically just fuel. Just got that photo there. Think of it as gas for your car. Without the gas, your car is not working. A very simple analogy. We're fueling daily to boost performance. We have to look at it as over the entire week. We wouldn't be able to not nourish ourselves properly during the week and then eat a bunch of carbs at the weekend and expect to play well. You have to fuel yourself daily to make sure you get that good performance in. We're fueling to stay healthy, decrease the risk of injuries. Again, self-explanatory. The less we eat, the less varied amount of nutrients we take into our body. That increases the risk of injuries, which we'll go through later on in the presentation. After an event, we have to fuel to recover. If we don't recover, we won't perform well in that next event. We'll have a lot of soreness, aching joints, just generally just won't be ready for that next event. And then I think this last one's important because although we're trying to gain an advantage on a field in our chosen sport, obviously us being a soccer club, we still want to enjoy the foods we eat. We want to. It's not sustainable if we're just eating things just to perform, just to see it as fuel. So we do need to make sure we're encouraging to eat the right foods, but the foods that we enjoy eating, and not just forcing people to eat things they don't want to eat. You know, we've all been in that situation before, I'm sure, where someone's asked us to eat a food and, you know, we don't want to eat that food. So, so I think that's important. So just to touch on what influences athletic ability, there is no secret ingredients to this. It's things that have to come together to create the whole person. So we have genetics. Obviously, there are people who are bigger than us, faster than us, stronger than us, and that's down to, you know, amount of muscle mass we have, muscle fiber, slow twitch, fast twitch fibers. You know, that affects our acceleration, our endurance. So obviously, genetics play a part in our performance. Optimal training. Are we training the right amount? Are we training too much, too little? Are we doing the right things during practice? And then good nutrition is just as important as those two things. We have to make sure we set the foundation. If the genetics are there or not there, if optimal training is there, the foundation for nutrition has to be there as well. So, consequences of poor nutrition. Weight loss. If we lose weight, we also lose strength as well. Obviously important in sport, especially soccer. You need a lot of core strength, upper body strength, leg strength. And so we need to eat the right amounts to get that energy, to make sure those things don't occur. Similar with fatigue, there's a certain amount of foods that we need to eat. It's individualized, and we'll touch on it later, but we will maybe not have that endurance if we don't supply the right amount of energy or fuel, like I said, if you think of it as a car, to our body. Immunity. We want our body to be able to fight against all diseases. If we don't eat the right amount of varied nutrients, we're looking, you know, to be more susceptible to toxins and just daily infections, which others might not get. Soreness and joint pain. I just touched on that just a little bit earlier. Nutrient deficient. Again, varied nutrition is the key. If we only eat one thing that's good for us, we're getting some nutrients, but we're not getting others, and we can get skin issues. Bone growth development might be affected. Even things that you might not realize, like dementia, can form based off a nutrient deficient person, and obviously that's, you know, certainly not something that any of us wants to go through. And then just diminished performance, pretty self-explanatory. We're not going to perform to our optimal level. Just to touch on energy needs. So a little diagram on the left there. As I mentioned earlier, it's individualized. So each person has to find their maintenance. How much food do they need to eat to sustain their weight or even gain weight to perform at their best? So the little chart there is just showing us, you know, energy in versus energy out. If we eat more, then we burn, or if we eat less, then we burn. And then on the right hand side, so calorie expended is basically a form of three things. It's a multiplication of three things. So rest metabolic rate, which is the amount we burn just from doing nothing, just from being us. Again, this is individualized. Some might burn more, some might burn less. The more muscle you have, the more you will burn, because you just do. So it's that plus thermic effect of food. So everything we eat gives a thermic effect, and that helps us burns calories as well. And then physical activity. So all those three things together play a part in how much we need to eat. And I've just put up there 15 to 30 calories per pound of body weight is a rough guide of the kind of calorie requirements. Obviously, there's a big gap between those two, and it's very independent, so it's hard to really hit the nail on the head, so to speak. This is a chart, and I'll just let you guys look over this. The first figure on each row is a male athlete, and the second figure is a female. So, and then there's the age group, 7 to 10, 11 to 14, 15 to 18. These are roughly the energy needs or the calorie requirements that someone would need at this age groups. We have low, so if we're not doing much activity, someone's not practicing as much, moderate, and then very high. As you can see, it differs a lot, especially between males and females. Females don't increase as much as males. And then some of our athletes who, 18, 19 years old could, especially if they're doing other things in school, I mean, could go up to the 5,000 calories. It's like I said, there's a wide variety, but I just thought it was good to touch on. So carbohydrates, as I've just spoken about a lot, that's what fuels muscle. That's the most important source for us to be able to perform and have the energy to do that. I want you to think of muscle as a sponge. And what I mean by that is basically if you had a dry sponge, it's not going to work very well. The sponge needs to be wet. And so they just want you to think of fueling your muscles as a wet sponge. So you're giving the right amount of carbohydrates to your body to make sure that they are ready to go. You do not want your muscles low on fuel. Carbohydrates reach muscles quickly, so it's straight into your bloodstream. The lower glycemic they are, the faster they reach the bloodstream and give you that source of energy. And as I said there, glycogen is a primary energy source. So glycogen is just how carbs are stored, just in case I hadn't mentioned that. The role of protein, so the second most important macronutrient for sport. It helps with muscle growth. Without protein, that muscle growth isn't going to occur. We use it only when glycogen stores are low. So 10% roughly when stores are low, 5% when they're high. And then it just aids in our recovery process, which again, later on in the presentation, we'll see how important that recovery and repair process is. So we do need protein before the event, more carbs, and then after the event, we do need protein to help repair and recover the damage that's occurred during the intense exercise. So just to sum this up, really, the effect on the diet on your endurance, a little chart graph, the higher the graph, the longer the minutes. And as you can see there, fat and protein diet, maximum endurance time is a lot less than that high carbohydrate diet. Was it 2 times? I mean, yeah, over 2 times the amount, 3 times the amount, just to show you the importance of it. All right, we're going to touch on fluids and hydration now for a while. Didn't mention hydration too much in the last presentation, so I just wanted to go through it a bit more. So males, 60% of our body weight is water. Females, a little bit less, but still obviously a large percentage of the body. When we're looking at hydration, we want to think about the things here. So cardiovascular function, obviously cardiovascular function, transport of nutrients, oxygen, removes waste. If we haven't got that right hydration levels, those things won't occur, which during sport especially, we don't want to happen. Thermoregulation, keeping the core body temperature to the what we want. We've all seen people who body temperature perhaps rises during a sporting event and they can no longer continue. We have to make sure we're hydrated so that doesn't happen. Injury prevention, main thing, probably a lot of cramps from dehydration during sport. Again, we've probably all experienced cramps at one point. Largely that is down to our hydration or energy demands that we've just not been able to fulfill. Again, recovery, we need to replace those minerals that are lost. The body sweats 2 hours of exercise can be 2 liters of fluid. So we need to make sure we do that. And then performance, I moved on to the next chart for that one. You see the arrows there. We lose if we're not hydrated properly: muscle strength, speed, stamina, energy, cognitive process, obviously, and then the risk of injury is then increases because of the negative effect of all those. Cognitive process, just in case, I assume you're all aware, but just this goes along with Rick's psychology aspects, where it starts to then affect how we think, our perception, perception of our surroundings, which obviously in soccer, really a sport where you need to be very perceptive of what's going on. It's an ever-changing picture, and you need to be able to pay attention to that. It can affect memory as well. So again, it's not something where you want to be involved in a sport where you suddenly, that memory is kind of a bit hazy. So it really does have a massive impact on your performance, and why we really do encourage all the athletes in our club to make sure they're drinking the right amount of fluids at the right times, and really to prevent all this happening. So when should you drink? Again, this is a rough guide on sort of the amount of fluids we should perhaps take in. So I mean, make a note of these, but by all means, you will have to find the right amount for your children to kind of to find what suits them best. It's a difficult one, but a rough guide. 2 hours before exercise, we want to be drinking a good amount of fluids, making sure we're hydrated. 15 minutes before, it starts to get a little bit less. You don't want to feel bloated or start to cause any stomach upset, obviously, as you're about to start. And then every 20 minutes during, again, similar sort of amount to what we're having before the game. We don't want to cause those stomach upsets. If it's a hot day, we might be a little bit more. If it's a cool day, it might be a little bit less. Again, we have to kind of gauge those things, and our body can sort of get used to. As you get older, you start to sort of understand how much your body kind of needs. And then post sport, again, we have to replace all that we've lost, the salts and potassium and all those the sweat we've lost. So again, a rough guide: 5 milliliters per kilogram of body weight, roughly. So I'll let you guys work that out in your head of the your weight of the athlete, and then figure out how much we need to drink. But yeah. So what we know, don't rely on thirst, especially in hot conditions. Sometimes we think we're not thirsty, but it doesn't matter. We need the fluids. Just so keep drinking. Encourage the kids on my teams to not, don't take big gulps. Don't drink it all super fast. Take sips more consistently. If we can get lots of smaller water breaks in practices, that would be better. Again, during games, I know in these hot conditions now for the past few months, we've been having water breaks in every game, and the kids really do need those. Drink before, during, and after goes without saying. Like I've just said, we can't just drink 2 liters right before a game and then expect to be okay. That's not how hydration works. We have to provide it throughout the day, similar to nutrition, where we have to eat the right amount of things daily to be able to perform better. Water is fine for if you're doing less than an hour of competition, like intense competition. For most young children, I would, to a certain age, certainly playing games less than an hour, I would only recommend water as their source of fluids. It's perfectly fine if you're eating right. If haven't got the energy, I would say it's more down to the nutrition than it is to start drinking Gatorade or sports drinks. To maybe kind of thing. So sports drinks, if you're going over 1 hour, it's an intense competition. Again, I would lean more towards the older age groups to start using these sports drinks, just because of the amount of unnatural things that are put in these drinks, and just for the tooth decay purposes as well. Obviously, we have to take care of our teeth, but this is a real big topic, and not many people understand the sports drinks market, and maybe think there's only one type of drink. So if anybody wants more information on this, I can certainly do a webinar just on sports drinks and just kind of go through the ins and outs of them all. Certainly give me an email and ask me any questions you've got on it as well, because it's definitely an a lack of understanding on the topic. When we talk about fuel for pre-exercise, all we're trying to do is we provide energy to the working muscles. So again, carbohydrates are the main source of energy, protein, minimal fats. We want fats earlier in the day, away from the workouts, away from the exercise. So maximize glycogen stores. I don't think I've touched on this, but so carbohydrates can only be stored to a certain amount in the body, unlike fats, where you can store there's unlimited amount of fat storage in your body. That's why people just keep getting fatter and fatter. But you can't store unlimited amount of carbohydrates, which is why we need to fill those muscles up, and then protein will start to come into play once those stores run out. It's not an unlimited source, which is why we need to fuel ourselves properly. Minimize hunger. We don't want to be too full, but we don't want to be hungry during play either. So we have to find that balance and maximize hydration. We just spoke about that a lot. Again, it's individual. Find what works for you, find what works for your child, and great, it's all working now. So this is kind of an idea of the timings of it. And so meals on the day of an event should be sort of 2/3 normal size. Again, you don't want to be too full, you just don't want to be hungry. Try and eat your largest meal 3 or 4 hours before the competition. As you get closer to the competition, it's more of a snack size meal, maybe half a size, quarter size of a meal. And then just perhaps what works better for me personally is I just have small stacks or liquids. Again, find what works for you, but I find for most people, as you get closer, those smaller snacks and liquids work better. And again, those snacks and ideas for meals are on the game day guide and snack guide that are up on the website, and what I shared a little bit in the last webinar. So we go on to recovery. So defined as helping athletes bounce back for future exercise bouts. And that's the main goal, as I said earlier. We want to consider how much exercise we've done, what was the intensity of it, was it 50%, 75%, 100%? When are we going to be exercising again? Is it a tournament weekend? Do we have 3 games in one day? Because that sometimes happens, which for me is crazy, but it does happen over here, and certainly something where we need to consider. And on those days, you need a lot of food. And because of the timing of the games, perhaps it's a lot of small snacks, more fluid type of things. The goals post exercise: restore carbohydrates, restore those fluids and electrolytes that we've lost through sweat, and we want to repair those muscles, and possibly we see some adaptation and muscle growth as well, depending on the sort of exercise we're doing. And especially the older boys who are starting to get into the gym in school, they're lifting weights. Certainly, if we want to see muscle adaptation, we need to be eating enough foods to fuel that. Refueling after exercise, it's very important. It's just, I've done 2 things on this because it's just, people don't realize how important it is. You have to recover, you have to repair, you have to have rest. Without it, you're not going to perform in the next event. It's just so important. The window for refueling, this is critical if you're doing multiple bouts, multiple events in one day. So if you're not, you can be a bit slower with this, but glycogen repletion does happen quicker after you've done some exercise. So we can always get some food in right after an event or performance. But again, for some it's different. For males and females, it's different. Females tend to be hungrier after exercise quicker than males. Me myself, I generally am not that hungry after playing sport, after playing soccer, and I might take a little while to eat. But if I am playing 1 or 2 things, 1 or 2 games in a day, I would try and have a liquid meal, because even though I'm not that hungry, I will need it, and it's just easier to drink those energy sources than it is to eat a meal at that time. And that's it really. I just wanted to you can just read this quote here. It's just kind of touching on, even though this is about sports nutrition, the importance of health and just eating right, just for our daily lives, is something I'm very passionate about. So I think this quote just sums that up quite well, obviously, because it benefits us in a sporting event, in sporting situations, but also it just means we live our daily lives better, more energy, happier, better skin, better bone development. We look better, we feel better, and it's just all around just of benefit to us as well. And that's the end of the presentation. Thank you for listening. Again, my email is at the start of this. Happy to take any questions. And if you are interested again in that sports drinks webinar, please let me know, and I'll make sure we get that one done. And I'll pass it back over to Rick.
Thanks, Gavin. That's quality. One thing I forgot to mention, if there's any specific topics that any of you coaches or parents want me to hit on, just send those my way, and I'll target specific areas that are relevant to you and your teams and your kids. So we wanted to get that out there. But yeah, thanks for your time.